Hi, everybody. I'm Kate from Rescue by Training. This is a special night. I am hosting my first guest ever on Facebook and YouTube Live. I have Katherine Davidson with me here tonight from Dog Inspired, and I am so excited to have her. Katherine and I know each other from attending Jean Donaldson's Academy for Dog Trainers. And she not only graduated from Jean's Academy, but she's also a certified separation anxiety trainer like I am. But she's based up in Canada, and she's one of the few French-speaking trainers that I know. So that's amazing to have that as a referral source. She's outside of Montreal, but she does distance consults. So it doesn't matter where you are, she can help you. So she's perfect to have as my guest tonight because not only is she an amazing trainer, but she recently had a baby. And I'm so excited to have her here to talk about her experiences and whatever struggles she had and any advice that she can offer you guys as expectant parents. So please help me welcome Katherine.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. You want to
Hi.
tell us a little about yourself that I didn't already mention?
Sure. So as Kate mentioned, I'm a graduate from the Academy for Dog Trainers. Also did separation anxiety, so I'm a certified separation anxiety trainer. I've been dog training for 6 years, and yeah, we had our recent little one, which has been amazing. And we have 3 dogs. I have a 6-year-old Great Dane. I have 11, almost 12-year-old German Shepherd mix and an 8-year-old Boston Terrier mix. So it's a pretty full house.
And a cat.
And a cat. I also have a Sphinx cat.
Yes, I love the cat. So that's exciting. So you have a little zoo. You have dogs and cats, and
we even have a turtle. It's awful.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you do turtle training also on the side?
I don't touch the turtle. He's not my domain. It's my husband.
Oh, okay. So yeah, if you are joining us live, please tell us where you are watching from. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. We have some questions that we got ahead of time, but if you've got questions, please definitely throw them in the chat and we will definitely get to them. So I just want to start, I guess, I know you and I had done a pre-baby prep session a little bit before when you were pregnant. Tell us a little bit about what your dog's experience and socialization to kids and infants was before you got pregnant and had a baby.
So I got Harlow as a puppy, and his socialization, I really concentrated a lot on it when he was younger. I have a lot of nieces and nephews, so he got to meet a lot of them, but he's still not super comfortable with young children, even though I tried as much as possible to expose him to it, but he's not the most comfortable with the baby. Maggie, she was my parents' dog previously, and she was always around kids, and she's the one who's the most comfortable around the baby. Xena, I got her as a rescue, so I'm not sure what her prior history is, and her either. She's not too interested, and whenever the baby comes around, she's like, no, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to stay away. Yeah, so I have, indifferent, not super comfortable, and I have one who's really comfortable with the baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you do out of our session after we did our session, or what did you do kind of on your own to help prepare them before the baby came? What specific things did you do?
One of the first things that I did, and I'm so happy I did it, was getting the dogs used to sleep outside of our bedroom. This was super important because when I first got pregnant, I was just sore everywhere. Your body really compensates for growing this tiny human. So the pain starts right away, even within 2 months of being pregnant. So I couldn't have the dog sleep with me. It was just unbearable. So we would start slowly getting them used to sleeping in the living room, make it super comfortable for them. And, we didn't do it from one day from the next. It was really a slow transition to really get them comfortable with it. I'm so happy I did it.
So did they sleep with you? They were sleeping with you in bed prior to getting pregnant and having a baby?
They were sleeping in our bed with us. And
all 3 of them?
Not Maggie. She never slept with us, but Harlow, my Great Dane, would sleep with us. So the one who's most problematic, the big one, he would sleep with us. The cat too, they would all cuddle with us. I knew I wanted to co-sleep with my daughter, even like, you know, whether it was having her bassinet in the room with us. Like I knew she was going to be in our room, and I knew it wasn't going to be safe with the dogs, you know, while we're sleeping. So I really didn't want them in there. And we started as soon as I was pregnant. It helped for my sleep too while I was pregnant to just sleep better as much as I could. But we did it very slowly, and we transitioned over a few weeks. So it wasn't from one day to the next that we just said, okay, no more dogs in the bedroom. We got them slowly used to it. You know, just a few hours here and there at night, and then I would let them in, and then progressively longer and longer as time went on. And now they don't bug us to come in the bedroom. So
So do you have to close the door to keep them out now, or is it really like they're just comfortable out there and it's fine?
They're comfortable. Xena will come sleep on her dog beds. Sometimes Maggie will come sleep in the doorway. But other than that, like even Harlow stays on the couch in the living room, which is really great.
That's great. Yeah, I did a blog post. So leading up to this Facebook Live, I've been doing a blog post for the last 5 weeks on bringing home baby, and one of the topics that I talked about was sleeping arrangements, and whether you're co-sleeping or having a bedside bassinet, that in both of those situations it's really unsafe to have the dog in bed with you, because you're getting up in the middle of the night and your sleep cycle is going to be all disturbed, and that means you're disturbing the dog. And if, you know, that's certainly a big change for them, but it's also, you know, you're probably not going to flick on all the lights. And if the dog is uncomfortable or showing uncomfortable body language, and you're tired and underslept and the lights are dim or the lights are out, you're not going to be able to get a good read on that body language. So definitely, you know, bassinet or co-sleeping, those are both situations where we really don't want the dog sleeping in bed. If you have a nursery and you're going to be monitoring the baby with a baby monitor, then obviously the dog sleeping arrangements can stay as is. But the way you handled that, you know, training them ahead of time and not just flipping that switch that suddenly you can sleep in bed and suddenly now you can't, and really doing that gradual transition probably really helped a lot. So yeah, that's great. And the cat is fine with the baby?
She loves the baby.
She loves the baby.
Maybe love is a little bit of a loaded word, but she's very comfortable with her whenever, and she always wants to be with me. I mean, the cat always wants to be with me. So she'll just come and the baby will try and reach out for her and grab at her. I don't let her, but you know, no matter what, like the cat's always there. She's always coming and always staying with us. And it's so sweet.
So is there anything that you wish, sort of in hindsight, that you had spent more time preparing or working on before Lily's arrival?
So, it's kind of hard to say because, you know, being pregnant, your energy levels are just, they're not there. You're super tired all the time. And just what little energy and motivation you have is just surviving this pregnancy. So I kind of wish I had a little bit more energy to put into like honing their obedience skills. Even as a dog trainer, I kind of let it, you know, go a little bit. But I wish I kind of spent a little bit more time on like mat training them, just so, you know, I wouldn't have to do it now. Even getting them used to sounds of a baby. This is something that they did struggle with at the beginning, just the sounds of a baby. I wish I introduced that a little bit more too. But I know I did the best I could with the energy that I had.
Exactly.
Definitely the obedience stuff. I wish I got that down packed before she was
and that's when I do my pre-baby prep session. I have sort of a suite of obedience skills that I kind of recommend that people focus on, and not just, you know, okay, these are the 6 or 8 skills that we want to focus on, but really trying to get those really strong on a verbal cue. Because one of the things we talk about is if you're holding or nursing a baby, or you're sitting on the couch, your dogs, we want them to respond, you know, without you having to get up and try to give a hand signal while you're holding a baby, because that's going to be difficult. So we really want those obedience skills practiced to the point where they're on a verbal cue. You mentioned the baby sounds and the mat training. I actually have a video that we can play. I recently did some day training with a dog that their family's expecting a baby in about 5 weeks. And so I did some day training. And one of the things I recommend is practicing with sort of a fake baby. I'll usually recommend water bottles in a pillowcase because that gives some weight and it gives some sort of juggling, weight and jiggliness like a real baby might be. It can be a little squeaky because the water bottles, but practicing that wrapped up in a blanket, and then tucking your phone in and playing some high quality audio recording sounds and practicing things like mat training and lifting the baby up and walking around soothing the crying baby. So why don't we go ahead and play that video? So here's the first time walking into the room with the carrier. We'll come back to that later about introducing the baby for the first time. And Piper is the dog here, and she's been pre-trained to do a downstay on that bed there. And you'll see me lift up. And we want to practice lifting the baby around the dog for a couple of reasons. That lifting motion can sometimes in some dogs trigger a predatory response where the dog will jump up. Also, some dogs that really love to tug, that dangling blanket piece there, they will sometimes jump up to try to play tug with the baby blanket. So we really want to practice that. And you can hear the baby sounds there. And practicing different locations, sitting, standing up, moving around furniture, because those are things as you're trying to soothe a crying baby, you're going to sometimes sit, sometimes you're going to walk around, sometimes you're going to move to different places. So we really want to get the dog comfortable with you moving around with those crying sounds. And she's still in training here, so she was being rewarded fairly regularly for holding that down on the mat there. Long term, if you're in that situation, you could give a bully stick or a Kong or something to keep the dog really glued to that mat. But I like showing that video just because it's a good example of a couple things that you can practice. You want to practice those auditory desensitization, getting the dog comfortable to those sounds. A recording may be a little different than a real baby, but it's a good sort of test the waters a little bit. If your dog is really responsive and reactive or very interested in those baby sounds from just the recording, then we know, that might be something we really need to channel a lot more energy into from a training perspective. Some dogs aren't upset by the noises at all, so maybe we don't need to focus on that, but we want to focus more energy on obedience and those basic skills, or in some cases, just separation. Some people don't have the energy or the desire to do a lot of basic obedience training. And so then we're just looking at management, which is a perfectly fine solution. So baby gates, X-pens, crates, that sort of thing. And certainly moving into toddlerhood, that's also something that you rely pretty heavily on from a management perspective. Once, like Lily starts crawling or walking or toddling, that period for dogs can actually be a lot more difficult than the infanthood stage of things. Once that toddler gets really unsteady and starts moving around and going towards the dog, as opposed to just being carried around all the time. I know that you are she's started crawling, so you guys are using baby gates now. We've got some pictures of your setup here. So if you want to kind of talk us through what your setup is.
So in our living room, we actually have gates up to separate the dogs from our living room. We previously had just like an X-pen inside the living room for the baby. And then, as she started moving around, she needed more space. So we just put up gates, so we had the whole living room for her. So that's what we did. And our house is actually really small. So it is, a bit of a tight setup. This is the picture that's there is when we had the X-pen in the living room. So this was great when she was, she wasn't crawling, she wasn't really moving, she'd just like roll around. So it was enough space for her. But then if we show the next picture of Harlow behind the gate.
We'll get there. We'll just go through them all. It's fine. No? Maybe
no,
I didn't load that
okay.
one. Okay, maybe we don't
fine.
have that one.
It's okay. So it was just, I just have a gate in the living room just to kind of keep them separated, because there are times where, I want her to be free to roam around and not, have to worry about the dogs getting up and accidentally stepping on her or her going to bug them. So I have gates set up and have their pillows on the other side of the gate so they can have a comfy spot. Definitely. Okay. And so one thing that does happen, and it even happened with us as well, is that you do get comfortable. You get comfortable. You say, okay, I don't need as much management. I'm going to take the gates down. And this is something that we did end up doing before we put the gates up again in the living room, where, we just took the gates down and we were feeling okay with just leaving everyone be together. And so dangerous. Nothing ever happened. I'm always right next to her. If she's not, right next to me, she's in my arms. But it is something that happens, and you need to catch yourself in those moments where, okay, I'm feeling comfortable, I'm going to take the gate down. Maybe not such a good idea.
Maybe not such. Yeah, I like that picture. Yeah, I like the picture where your legs are between. If we can go back, there's a picture of, there. Oop, we missed it right there. So we have dog, adult body part, and then the baby. So you're, you are the barrier in that situation, so if you're on the floor, I recommend when I talk to clients who are doing tummy time, or, if the baby's on the floor, that the adult is sort of that barrier. You don't have a baby gate up in that situation, but you are that barrier. But, we only really want to put dogs in that situation if they're properly trained and we know that they can respond to those commands. The picture that you had of Lily crawling and the dog on the dog bed, perfectly relaxed, head down, we can tell that dog is not stressed at all. And she's having tummy time. She's on the floor. That's a perfect example. I love that. And I know that you're right there.
Yeah. And you could see, she's probably about 4 or 5 feet away from Maggie, and Maggie, in both pictures, it's Maggie who's there. It's not the other two dogs. They're never around. And it's because they choose not to be there. They're really not comfortable with the baby. And I totally respect their space. Yeah. And Maggie will come around. She's comfortable. She'll lay there and want to cuddle with us. If we're doing some floor time and we're playing with Lily on the floor, Maggie will come and lay next to us. And this is where I put my leg in between them, because Lily's a baby. She has, she can't control her impulses. She
motor skills.
Her motor skills is just reflexes at this point. And so she'll just go out and grab, or, she'll smack by accident. She's not doing it on purpose, but I have to make sure that she doesn't reach Maggie. And this is one thing that sometimes I often see with parents, is that they'll let their baby pet the dog and be like, oh, nice puppy, be gentle. Yeah. But your dog shouldn't be the guinea pig, because babies will suddenly grab and they'll suddenly smack and they suddenly yell, which can be terrifying to dogs. So I'm always in between them. I don't let Lily go up to them. If the dogs come by and they want to sniff her, I don't mind that. My dogs are fine, but I try to manage the interaction so it's very minimal.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, when I do sessions, I talk about guided touch. So where if you want the baby to be touching the dog, that the parent's hand is on top of the baby's hand, and you're really guiding and controlling that, so that if the baby does start to, grab, it's fuzzy, it's soft, that's a very natural instinct for babies to just, grab onto that. But if your hand is on top of hers, you're going to feel that, and you'll be able to either pull her back or be able to sort of control that situation. And it prevents that smacking and the, sudden movements and things like that. So any sort of early physical touch between the baby and the dog should always be parent guided in that situation. I really like that.
Yeah,
that,
definitely. And I even encourage people to use like stuffed animals instead,
yeah,
pet the stuffed animal or even pet you, and then you could pet the baby and,
yeah,
different ways
exactly.
to show some sort of like impulse control, I guess, but they're
Yeah,
babies. It's something that happens over time. And I don't expect the dogs to be tolerant of this stuff, especially loud, suddenly moving babies. It's a little bit
yeah,
overwhelming for them. So I keep it to a
yeah.
minimum.
Unpredictable. Yep. Dogs love
Yes,
predictability, and babies and toddlers are anything but predictable.
exactly.
Let's talk about your homecoming and when you first brought Lily home. And we have a question that came in on the chat about introducing the baby to the dogs for the first time. So I'm curious what your approach was, and then we'll see, if that's any different from what I talk to clients about, just kind of how you initially did that when you first came back from the hospital.
Sure. So usually when I come home, if I'm gone out for an errand or whatever, the dogs are super excited to see me, and I had that in mind. So when we came home, I had my husband go inside first, say hi to the dogs, let them out to go pee, and then we swapped. So he came back to the car to grab the baby. I went inside so they can say hello to me, and then my husband brought the baby in. He brought her straight into her room. We had the gates. She's making little noises. So they were a little bit intrigued, like, what is this? But we didn't let them sniff her. We didn't let them investigate. Okay. We just came home, brought this little package, and it was nothing special.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. No big deal. No big, woo, what's this? None of that. Great.
No, none of that. And we didn't let them have direct access to her. And this is a big thing that a lot of parents do. And you see videos on YouTube of people doing this, but they don't know, right? So they kind of just let the dog go in and sniff. And the problem is they're face to face. You don't know how your dog's going to react, even though, my dog would never do that. You never know. And so they have direct access to your baby's face. And oftentimes what you see is then the parent will pull the dog back. And so when you pull the dog back, the dog will usually go on the opposite direction and go closer towards the baby. So it's best not to directly introduce them and just go slowly, just really do a slow transition. So what I would do was I had the gate up, I took the baby out, and when I was nursing her, he would let the dogs in one by one. They would come sniff her feet, and then they would go away, and she'd make a noise and come back and look. And it was gradual over a few days before, they would actually realize, oh, there's a thing here that's new. What is this? So it was a slow transition.
Yep. Those videos, and you're right. People don't know. And I think there's sort of an assumption or a desire that this is my baby and the dogs are going to just automatically know that this came from me and that it's my baby and the dog will love my baby because it's mine. But we don't know, even if your dog has a history of socialization with babies and children, we don't know in that moment how that dog is going to respond. And the dog and the baby are going to have years and years and years together. We don't need to make it about that first moment. And I tell people, don't make a big deal when you come home and you've got that carrier. The carrier goes on a high surface. It doesn't go on the floor. It goes on a table or on a countertop, or it goes right into the nursery like what you did. There's going to be opportunities for the dogs to be included and have access, even if it's from a distance, to learn about this new little thing without contact. You can have inclusion without contact. They have tremendous senses of smell. We don't need to let them get right up into the baby carrier to smell the baby. We don't need any of that. So over days or weeks or sometimes months, however long it takes the dog to get comfortable, and sniffing the feet and sniffing, those non-face areas, because we don't want the face-to-face contact. Did you bring your baby blanket home? Because that was my first first blog post of this series that I did, was the sort of advice that so many birthing coaches and doctors give is, oh, just bring the baby blanket home, and your dog will love your baby.
Honestly, I got so many people telling me this. I'm like, you guys do know I'm a dog trainer, right? Like, I think I know what I'm doing. But no, we didn't do that because you don't have enough time to create any positive associations. Positive associations happen through time. And so, you know, especially I gave birth during COVID, we're not allowed leaving the hospital. So we stayed at the hospital, and as soon as we're able to leave, it was just to come home, you know. So my husband wasn't even able to leave for a little bit. So there was no sort of opportunity to do this type of scent work, I guess. And so it's, unless you have a child who is staying longer in the hospital, whether, you know, some health conditions or they're born premature, definitely you have time to create those positive associations through smell. So definitely take the time to do it. But if you're coming straight home, don't even bother.
And that's exactly what I say. You know, it's sort of, not only do you usually not have time unless you're in this unfortunate situation that your baby's in NICU or something for an extended period of time, we don't have time to create those positive associations with a single item, you know, for scent. But also then we're taking this blanket and we're, you know, making a big deal about the blanket, like, ooh, what's this? And we're shoving it in the dog's face, and the dog's like, okay, what's this? And, you know, if we think about it sort of out of context, you know, outside of your baby, if you have other friends come over, or you have the plumber's coming over, you don't ask the plumber to send over a pair of underwear before the plumber comes over so that your dog is comfortable with the plumber. Like, this idea that we need to introduce the smell of the baby before the baby comes home, and that's the only way that the dog is going to be comfortable, is kind of absurd if we sort of think about it in context. You know, if you've got a dog who's afraid of new people and stranger danger, you're probably already managing that dog for stranger interactions. And if you have a dog that has those issues, then certainly leading up to the birth and through your pregnancy, the, you know, management and training and all of that stuff is stuff that you want to be working on. But in those dogs, we tend to rely more heavily on the management piece of things to, you know, really make sure that the baby is going to be safe in those interactions. But just bringing home the baby blanket, you know, the sort of fallacy of that is that I think parents are told, oh, bring home the baby blanket. And in their minds, like, that's the only thing they need to do to prepare their dog. And check, that's off my to-do list, when really there's so many other things that are more beneficial to be doing ahead of time, like practicing those basic obedience skills and, you know, making sure that your dog is comfortable behind a baby gate when you're on the other side of the baby gate. So, you know, separation anxiety issues aside, a lot of dogs have FOMO. They don't want to be separated behind a baby gate when all the action is happening on the other side of the baby gate. So, you know, I've got one of my dogs hates closed doors. He does not have separation anxiety at all, but all doors should be open at all times, because if you're behind a closed door, I'm missing out on something. And so a lot of dogs are not comfortable behind a baby gate when you're in another part of the room with the baby and they're potentially missing out on something. So channeling training energy into things like that is much more beneficial than, you know, here's the baby blanket, sniff it, sniff it, sniff it. So that's great that was how you did that. Any other questions in the chat? I don't see any. So let's move to this next question here. So outside of Maggie, the other dogs, do you have a sense of what they are struggling with? You know, what they struggled with when you first came home in those first 3 months? Do you think it was the sort of sounds of Lily, or do you have a sense of what a change in routine or what it was?
Honestly, I'm pretty potato. So my dogs are already used to not having too much attention to begin with. And so I think they really got used to it pretty quickly. It was really the sounds that are difficult for them, and it's still something that they struggle with. So whenever she cries, they start howling, and it's a choir. I should have put a video, but it's honestly a choir when she cries. It gets her to stop crying, which is great, but they do all howl together. All three of them will start going, and then, you know, Lily's looking around like, oh my gosh, what's going on?
What's going on?
Yeah, so the sounds are something that I really wish I spent a little bit more time on.
Okay.
Thinking back on it, I do see Harlow being more sound sensitive, and I should have realized, but I mean, you don't know till you're actually in the situation. But I put my energy where I was able to, which was, creating management, getting them used to not being with us all the time. But if there's one thing I could go back and change, it would be definitely introducing sounds for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Is he sound sensitive outside of baby stuff, like to other sounds? No. So this was you didn't expect this.
It was, he's sensitive to like certain like musical instruments, super strange things. Like he really hates the harmonica.
Interesting.
And very, very random, because my husband's a musician, so he likes to play all kinds of instruments. And then when he takes some of them out, it just acquire again. So I should have cued into it that it was a possibility. But anyways, I didn't know. So
yeah. We have another question here in the chat. Both of our dogs are anxious around children, though they have very little experience socializing with them. The experiences they have had were mostly negative. How can we ensure positive association to our baby? Do you want to take that one?
Sure. So my dogs too, besides Maggie, the other two are not very comfortable around children. And so what we did was just respect their space, let them kind of observe the baby from far, and not force any interaction. So I would never say, okay, Harlow, come sniff her, or come give baby kiss, or, I kind of respected their space and make sure that the baby doesn't get too close to them. And it's something that's going to happen over time. They'll get more comfortable. They'll see that, being around her is safe. There's nothing awful that happens. When she'll start eating too, they'll start associating with her with food. So that's always positive as well. And it's honestly a marathon. So you have to take these baby steps and making sure that everyone's safe. So lots of management, and it just comes over time and not rushing it.
Yeah. Were you intentionally treating when she was crying and you noticed that Harlow was upset? Were you doing any like counter conditioning for that?
Honestly, no, just because she'd be crying and I'm like overwhelmed by a newborn baby crying.
Yep, exactly.
So it's very overwhelming to have a newborn baby. And so I see that there's possibilities, but you're not in the mental state, you're tired, you're emotional, so I just kind of would shoo them outside and be like, all right, let's go outside, go take a 5-minute and then calm the baby down. I'd let them back in. And that was how I managed it.
Yeah, that's a great option if you've got a yard and you can kind of send them out when the baby cries and, over time, let them acclimate a little bit more. I have some clients that I'm working with that are doing intentional counter conditioning. So, every time the baby, and it sort of takes two, it's a couple. So one is tending to the baby and the other person is tending to the dog. So the baby's crying and the other person is feeding the dog for the duration that the baby's crying to help foster that positive association that baby crying predicts chicken or baby crying predicts something really yummy and tasty. But that definitely does take, it's a tag team there. It definitely, you can't do that if you're trying to handle a crying baby by yourself. Tossing treats while you're
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, like even raising a baby is it's a team effort, so if you're able to have, your partner help you, then I think that's an amazing exercise to practice with the dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love that you're a trainer and you're like, nope, I didn't do that, which is amazing because it's real. It's totally real. It's just like, you're overwhelmed, you're tired, you have a crying baby. And honestly, in that moment, the baby is your priority. The baby has to be your priority in that moment. And, that's the other thing when I talk to clients about homecoming, that this baby is your baby. It's not the dog's baby. And we're not making a big deal about the baby coming home because it's not about the dogs in that moment. It's about mom healing from giving birth. It's about settling into your new routine and whatever that's going to be. And the dogs will find their place in that new routine. But, we don't need to do it all in the first 48 hours.
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
the other thing that you mentioned before was you said you're a little potato and the dogs didn't, have a big change in their exercise and routine really. I think that is something for really active dogs that is a struggle and something that we talk about with clients a lot, that sort of leading up to the birth of the baby, I recommend sort of starting to taper the dog's exercise so that there's not a stark cutoff that they're going to the dog park 2 or 3 times a day. And then the baby comes and now suddenly there's no time or energy to take the dog to the dog park, or they're going on these super long walks or hikes. And now that's just not happening. And the dog gets frustrated because they've gotten accustomed to burning off this amount of energy, and suddenly now that's not happening. So one of the recommendations I usually talk to clients about is, tapering that exercise back gradually, kind of like what you did with the sleeping arrangements, tapering that back gradually so that once the baby comes, unless you're outsourcing it and having a dog walker or something to maintain that energy burn for the dog, that we want to make sure that we're maybe channeling more effort into things like mental enrichment and food toys and bully sticks and Kongs and, things that don't require us to actually go to the dog park for an hour.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that we end up doing was I have there's a company here in Canada that you could purchase bully sticks and yak chews in bulk, and they have like a subscription where it sends it to your house like every 2 months, and that's what I did as a great way to just like, I don't have to think about it. It just shows up on my door, and then I have a whole bunch of bully sticks. I prepared a whole bunch of Kongs for them, and when you have a baby, it's really, you need a village. And it's often said when you have children, like you need a village to help you take care of this baby. And, you can rely on your people to help you with your dog. I would have, some of our family members just come and hang out with them because I'd be very overwhelmed. And that's one thing that I was very surprised about, was just how overwhelming it was bringing home a baby and then having my dogs. And my dogs are, they're old. They're all basically seniors. And so they're not demanding. But some of the things that I was surprised about was the emotions, and the emotions are so real. You're so overwhelmed. You feel mom guilt like you wouldn't believe. You feel very guilty not spending as much time with your dogs, even though I didn't do that much with them even to begin with. Resentment. You feel a lot of resentment towards your animals. And they're not doing anything in particular. It's just a feeling that you have. And I think it's important for parents to tiny humans and to their dogs is that it's normal. It's normal to feel this way, to look at your dog and be like, your hair is everywhere and it's driving me insane, because you don't realize how annoying their hair is till you see it all over your baby.
Right. Yeah.
So these emotions are so real, and it's overwhelming. And this is where, I understand when some families decide to rehome their dogs after having a baby, because you feel all these emotions and you have all these people making you feel awful about it. Like your dog was there first and he should take priority, but you have this tiny human now, and it's, you just gave birth, you're in pain, your emotions are all out of whack. And even for our partners, my husband was very overwhelmed and had lots of emotions towards us as well. And I think it's important for people to know that it's normal. It does go away. It sometimes comes back in waves, but it's normal that you feel this way. Yeah.
We Family Pause, I'm a Family Pause parent educator, and they coined that sort of the impulsive rehoming phase, that usually somewhere in that, first 3 to 6 months after you give birth, you're feeling that mommy guilt of the dogs aren't getting everything they should be getting. Maybe the baby's not getting everything the baby should be getting. My partner's not getting, I can't make anybody happy. Maybe there's a little bit of postpartum stuff going on with you. You're underslept or emotional. Everything is sort of off the rails because you haven't found that new normal. And a lot of people get into that impulsive rehoming phase where you start thinking, maybe the dog would be better off somewhere else where they can get more time or they could get more energy. And a lot of times it's not anything that the dog has done specifically. The dog, it's not behavior related. You're just feeling bad, like you're not able to meet everyone's needs. And you think that maybe that's the best way out. And it is normal. And I bring that up and prepare people, like, you're probably going to feel this at some point, and that's normal. And it does usually pass. And usually it's not the best case scenario for the dog to go live somewhere else. In rare cases, sometimes that is, the better option. But for most dogs, that's not going to be the best option. And I really encourage people, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, to try to maintain that, human to dog bond, and spend 5 minutes playing tug or fetch or a grooming session or a cuddling session when the baby is napping or something, to really maintain that bond between you and your dog. Because the families that do that are very intentional about carving out 5 or 10 minutes a day to maintain that bond, those are the families that tend not to go through that impulsive rehoming phase, because they stay connected and attached to the dogs. So I really try to, even if you're tapped out, 5 minutes a day, just carve it out for your dog. And you're going to get lots of advice from other people that is probably unsolicited, telling you, oh, you should just do this or you should do that. And, it's hard to process all of that.
It is. And honestly, like, we went through, trying to rehome Maggie, even though Maggie's the best one with baby. It's just, she was the last one into our household. We're like, okay, maybe she'd be better off with one of my siblings. And I was actually going to bring her over on a specific date, and that date came and I didn't go through with it. And, one of my other sisters was joking around. She'd be like, I'll take your cat. And I just started bawling. I'm like, I feel like a terrible mommy. And I was just bawling my eyes out because I was thinking of rehoming my dog. And then she's telling me to rehome my cat. I was overwhelmed, And so it's something that I even went through. I went through as a dog trainer, and, I prepared
you were best prepared for it. Exactly.
And I still felt it. So it's
exactly
that way.
Yeah. And if tapping into one of the things you said before, like that it takes a village, and, having that support system behind you, that, a lot of people, when you have a baby, they're like, oh, can I help? Can I bring you dinner? Can I, what can I do to help? And
come walk my dogs.
Exactly. And that's what I tell people. Can you come walk my dog? Can you stuff Kongs? Can you, engage my dog? Because because that alleviates some of that mommy guilt. And if you know that your dogs are being taken care of, even if it's not by you, that they're being enriched or walked or exercised, or that you now have a freezer full of frozen stuffed food toys that in a pinch you can just go and grab and give to the dogs and keep them occupied for a little while, that's going to help your mental state. It's going to help you feel better, and it's going to take that weight off of your shoulders, because now those volunteers that have, offered to help you, maybe they meant to offer with the baby, but this is the best way that you can, be helped in that moment. And it's important to tap into that, support network. The company that you mentioned that does the bulk, that's only in Canada? The bulk bully sticks?
I'm not sure. Yeah, it's called Bully Bunches. So they are based in Canada. They probably ship to the US as well. But I'm sure there are companies in the US, and honestly, it's lifesaver.
Yeah. I get, we get Best Bully Sticks from them, and you can order directly from them, and they sell pretty large quantities. They do sell on Amazon, but you can order directly from the company, and they often have lots of coupons and stuff. And they do other, bully sticks and pig ears and cow ears and all sorts of tracheas and all sorts of gross body parts that dogs love.
Whatever makes them happy.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I think we are at time here. Any last questions in the chat? I just want to make sure that we're not missing anybody. Okay, so I think that wraps up. Anything? Let's put up your You have any events coming up? I know still COVID, but are you doing any online classes or anything?
Not for the moment. I'm just doing private consults, but
Okay.
I'm trying to do a lot of social media stuff and doing more lives on Instagram. So I'm a little bit more active on Instagram if ever anyone wants to check that out. Yeah.
I think we've
That's
got
my website.
your
That's so beautiful, Harlow.
yes, he's so handsome.
Very nice.
We've got your social handles there we can put up so that people know where to find you. There you are on Facebook. Yeah, you're pretty active you've been putting out some beautiful graphics too. You've been doing a great job with that. And Instagram, there you go. Perfect.
Yep, there we go.
There you go. So this is the sort of culmination of my Bringing Home Baby series. Earlier this week on Monday, I released a free downloadable 10 do's and don'ts for introducing your dog to your new baby. And you can grab that on my website. And we will put the link in the chat. So that people have a link to that. But if you go to the website or Facebook or my blog, you'll be able to find it there. And it's a free resource. It's 18 pages. You can grab it and it'll go through some of what we talked about tonight, but there's some other information in there that is good, important information. I also do a 2-hour video presentation, a PowerPoint presentation for pre-baby prep and pre-toddler prep. So if you are expecting baby, you could schedule that through my website, or if your baby is moving into toddlerhood, I also offer a toddler version of that, dogs and toddlers or dogs and storks, and you can book that on my website. Anything else you want to mention, Catherine?
Honestly, the one thing that I can give for advice to new parents or expecting parents is definitely hire a trainer to help you. It's worth its price in gold, and it'll help you channel your energy in the right spots.
Yeah, that's good. So that you're not just floundering and guessing.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. Good. Excellent advice. Thank you so much for joining us. This was so wonderful to have you. You had so much good advice and perspective and
well, thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
I'm so excited to have you. So thank you for joining us. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night,
Bye.
guys.